The first impossible sound came through a dead radio in the middle of a desert storm. Ryan Vale heard it while lying under a cracked communication tower. One arm buried elbow-deep inside a rusted signal box, sand needling his face through the torn edge of his scarf. The radio above him had not worked in 9 years. Everyone in Mero province knew that. Children climbed it for dares. Birds nested in its dish. During lightning season, people bet on whether it would finally collapse. But at 2:17 in the morning, while the storm rolled over the red flats like a living wall, the dead radio whispered his name. Ryan. He froze. The wire in his hand sparked blue. For one full second, he thought grief had finally found a new way to hurt him. His wife had been gone 3 years. His daughter, Mira, had stopped speaking to him in full sentences 6 months after the funeral. Loneliness did strange things to men who repaired machines nobody needed anymore. Then the radio spoke again. Ryan Vale. Do not answer the bells. The storm swallowed the voice. Ryan jerked backward so fast his shoulder slammed into the tower strut. Pain flashed white across his ribs. He rolled out from under the signal box, grabbed his lantern, and stared up at the dead dish turning slowly in the wind. It should not have moved. The tower had no power. Across the desert, buried under curtains of dust, the town of Orizon began to ring. Not one bell, all of them. The church bell, the school bell, the brass alarm outside the miners' hall, the tiny handbell above old Mrs. Kale's bakery door. Every bell in town answered the storm with frantic, uneven music. Ryan stood in the dark, listening. Then the sky breathed. It was low and enormous, a sound too deep for thunder, too steady for wind. The clouds above the desert bent inward as if something vast had pressed its face against the world from the other side. Ryan ran. By the time he reached Orizon, people had flooded the main road in nightclothes and work boots, faces pale under lantern light. Sand moved around their ankles like shallow water. The bells kept ringing though no hands touched them. "Ryan!" shouted Tomas Reed, the town marshal, pushing through the crowd with a rifle in both hands. "You see the tower?" "I heard it," Ryan said. Tomas stopped. "Heard what?" Before Ryan could answer, the church doors burst open. Father Ivan stumbled out backward, both hands clamped over his ears. Blood ran between his fingers. Behind him, the church bell swung so violently the wooden frame cracked. "Don't listen!" the priest screamed. "Don't listen to the pattern." A woman in the crowd began humming. Ryan turned toward her. It was Mara Voss, the schoolteacher, eyes open but empty, mouth shaping a tune that matched the bells. Her husband grabbed her shoulders. "Mara? Mara, stop." She smiled at something no one else could see. Then she walked straight into the storm. Her husband lunged after her, but Ryan caught him around the waist. "No! Let me go! You can't see. She's my wife, and you'll die 2 steps after her." The man fought like a wounded animal. Ryan held on, boots sliding in the sand, until Tomas struck the man hard across the jaw and dropped him into the mud. More people were humming now. 5, 10, maybe 20. Their voices slipped between the bells, soft and obedient. One by one, they turned toward the northern flats, where the storm was thickest and the old salt road vanished into red darkness. Ryan's blood went cold. "Mira." He shoved through the crowd and sprinted toward home. His house stood at the edge of town, small and leaning, its windows boarded against sand. Inside, the kitchen lamp was still burning. Myra's chair was empty. Her half-carved wooden horse lay on the table beside a cup of cold tea. "Mira!" No answer. He found her in the yard. She stood barefoot in the storm, black hair whipping across her face, staring north. "Mira!" He approached slowly. "Come inside." She did not move. The bells rang harder. Her lips parted. Ryan slapped his hands over her ears before the hum could leave her mouth. She jerked awake like someone pulled from deep water. "Papa!" Her voice cracked. He almost broke at the sound of it. She had not called him that in months. "I'm here," he said, pulling her against his chest. "I've got you." She trembled. Mama was calling me. Ryan closed his eyes. The cruelest traps always used the voices of the dead. Behind them, a lantern bobbed in the storm. Tomas staggered into the yard, breathing hard. "Half the town is walking north," he said. "They won't stop. We tied some down, but others are fighting us." "What's north?" Ryan asked. Tomas looked past him toward the storm. "The quarry." No one spoke for a moment. The quarry had been sealed 13 years ago after the collapse. 40 miners buried. No bodies recovered. No rescue tunnels stable enough to enter. The company poured concrete over the main shaft and left town the next morning. Ryan's father had died down there. So had Tomas's brother. So had half the names carved into the black memorial stone outside the miners' hall. Mira gripped Ryan's coat. "Something is under it." The ground shook. Far to the north, beyond the last houses, a red column of light rose from the quarry and cut through the storm into the clouds. The bells stopped instantly. The silence after them was worse. Then, from every window in Orzon, every mirror, every dark pane of glass, a different voice began speaking at once. Some cried, some laughed, some begged to be let in. And from the dead radio tower behind the town, louder than all of them, came the same voice Ryan had heard in the desert. "Ryan Vale," it said. "Your father opened the door. Your daughter is the key." Mira looked up at him, terrified. From the northern road, the missing townspeople began screaming. Ryan lifted Mira into his arms and turned toward the quarry. The screams from the northern road did not sound human for long. At first they were cries of panic. People calling names, begging for help, shouting into the storm. Then the voices stretched into something raw and animal, as if the desert itself had learned to scream through human throats. Ryan ran harder. Mira clung to his neck while Tomas pushed ahead with the lantern and rifle. Sand whipped around them in violent spirals. The red beam from the quarry painted the clouds overhead like an open wound. "Stay close," Tomas shouted. 3 figures burst through the storm toward them. Ryan almost yelled in relief until he recognized the faces. Mara Voss, old Ben Alder, little Kira Holt. All 3 moved strangely, too fast, too smooth. Their eyes reflected red light like polished glass. "Kira!" Tomas lowered his rifle. "Sweetheart, stop!" The child tilted her head. Then Mara lunged. Tomas fired instinctively. The shot exploded through the storm, striking Mara in the shoulder. Any normal person would have dropped. Instead, she slammed into Tomas hard enough to throw him sideways into a fence post. Ben Alder came next, mouth hanging open unnaturally wide. Blood ran from his nose, but he did not seem to notice. Ryan shoved Mira behind him and grabbed a broken rake handle from the roadside. "Run to the truck," he yelled. Mira didn't move. Ben charged. Ryan swung the handle with both hands. Wood cracked against Ben's jaw. The old man staggered but did not fall. His fingers clawed for Ryan's throat with terrifying strength. Up close, Ryan saw movement beneath Ben's skin. Something crawling. Tiny black lines shifting behind the flesh of his neck. Fear hit him so hard his knees weakened. Tomas recovered fast. He jammed the rifle barrel beneath Ben's chin and fired again. Ben collapsed backward into the sand, twitching violently. Kira still stood motionless in the storm. The child smiled. Then she spoke in a voice far too deep for her body. "It remembers you, Ryan Vale." The lantern exploded. Darkness swallowed them. Mira screamed. Something moved behind Ryan, huge and fast. He spun just in time to see Mara rise again despite the blood soaking her clothes. The storm roared louder. Then a second light appeared beyond the quarry. Blue this time. Cold blue. A beam cut across the desert from somewhere beneath the earth, intersecting the red column in the sky. The moment the lights touched, every possessed townsperson froze. Silence. Then all of them turned north together and began walking again. Not running. Marching. Tomas grabbed Ryan's arm. "We leave. Now." "No." Tomas stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "My daughter almost answered whatever that thing is," Ryan said. "If we run, it follows." "You don't know that." And you don't know it won't. Another tremor rolled under their feet. Far ahead, near the quarry rim, shapes moved through the storm. Dozens of townspeople disappearing down into the red light. Mira pulled weakly at Ryan's sleeve. The voices are getting louder. He looked down. Blood trickled from her left ear. His stomach dropped. Tomas saw it too. Jesus! She heard it before I reached her. We need a doctor. There isn't one left in town. That was true. Orzen's clinic had closed 2 winters ago after the last physician moved east. The nearest city was 6 hours away through desert roads already vanishing beneath the storm. Mira winced suddenly, clutching her head. Papa! Something's singing. Ryan knelt beside her. Can you tell where? She pointed toward the quarry. Underground. A memory surfaced then, one he had buried for years. His father standing at the kitchen table 13 years ago, hands blackened with quarry dust, whispering to Ryan's mother late at night. The sound isn't machinery. Ryan had been 14, pretending to sleep in the next room. The earth is making patterns. 2 weeks later, the collapse happened. 40 men dead, including his father. Ryan slowly looked toward the glowing horizon. Maybe they had never been alone down there. Tomas reloaded his rifle with shaking hands. You're thinking about the collapse. Ryan nodded. You think this started back then? I think it started long before us. The wind shifted. For one brief second, the storm thinned enough for them to see the quarry clearly. The concrete seal over the main shaft was gone. Not broken. Opened. Massive slabs lay folded outward around the rim like petals around a flower. Red light poured from the hole in steady pulses, timed perfectly with the low breathing sound in the sky. Something descended inside the shaft. Not climbing. Floating. Ryan could only glimpse pieces between blowing sand. Long limbs, pale surfaces, reflections like wet bone. Mira buried her face against his chest. Don't let it see me. Too late. The breathing stopped. Everything stopped. Even the storm. The desert fell into impossible stillness. Then a voice rolled across the flats. Not through the air, but directly inside their skulls. Return the child. Tomas dropped to one knee, gripping his head. Blood streamed from his nose. Ryan nearly collapsed himself. The pressure felt enormous, like drowning beneath deep water. But Mira lifted her head slowly and answered, No. The silence that followed felt shocked. Ryan stared at her. Myra's eyes were no longer frightened. They were focused, listening to something distant. You hear it, Ryan whispered. There are 2 voices now, she said softly. The red beam flickered violently. Deep beneath the quarry, something screamed. Not human, ancient, and suddenly furious. The blue light underground intensified. A shockwave blasted outward from the quarry mouth, throwing sand, stone, and bodies across the flats. Ryan shielded Mira as Tomas was hurled backward into the road. The red column shattered into fragments of light. For the first time since the storm began, the bells of Orzen rang again, but now they sounded broken and desperate. From the quarry came a new sound. Footsteps. Heavy. Mechanical. Slowly, through dust and red smoke, a figure emerged from the open shaft. Tall. Wrapped in black metal scarred with symbols Ryan didn't recognize. Its face hidden behind a cracked silver mask. In one hand it carried a lantern burning with cold blue fire. The townspeople marching toward the quarry immediately stopped moving. Every possessed body turned toward the figure. Then, one by one, they dropped to their knees. The stranger looked directly at Ryan. When it spoke, the voice was distorted beneath the mask, neither male nor female. You must leave this town before dawn, it said. Behind the figure, deep in the quarry, something massive began climbing upward toward the surface. The thing climbing from the quarry did not hurry. That was the worst part. If it had charged blindly like an animal, Ryan could have understood it. Fear liked simple shapes. Teeth, claws, hunger. But whatever rose beneath the earth moved with terrible patience. As though it had waited so long that another few minutes meant nothing. The masked stranger stepped forward, blue lantern glowing against the storm. You have minutes left, they said. Move. Tomas staggered upright, wiping blood from his mouth. Who the hell are you? The stranger ignored him entirely. Their attention remained fixed on Mira. The child stared back silently. Behind them, the quarry groaned. Stone cracked. A gigantic shape shifted beneath the red glow far below, scraping against the shaft walls as it climbed higher. Ryan tightened his grip on Mira. You know what that thing is? Yes. Then start talking. The stranger hesitated. Not fear. Recognition. You carry his face, they said quietly. Ryan's pulse jumped. Whose? Elias Vale. The name hit him harder than the storm. His father. Tomas looked between them. You knew his father? I knew what he opened. The ground shook again, harder this time. Across the desert, windows shattered throughout Orizon. Somewhere behind them, horses screamed from a stable. The stranger turned sharply toward the quarry. It's waking faster than expected. What is? Tomas demanded. The answer came from underground. A hand emerged over the quarry rim. It was enormous. Not flesh. Something darker. Its surface looked like polished stone soaked in oil, threaded with glowing red veins pulsing like a heartbeat. The fingers dug into the earth with slow crushing strength. Then another hand appeared. The creature pulled itself upward. Mira buried her face into Ryan's shoulder again. Don't let it look at me. Too late. The thing's head rose above the quarry edge. Ryan forgot how to breathe. It had no eyes. Its face was smooth except for a vertical split running from forehead to throat, glowing faintly red between sealed layers of black skin. Long metal fragments protruded from its back like rusted blades buried into its spine ages ago. It looked less like a living creature and more like something excavated from the bottom of the world. Ancient. Buried. Wrong. The townspeople kneeling around the quarry began whispering together in one voice. Open the gate. The creature answered without moving its mouth. Return the vessel. The pressure slammed into Ryan's skull again. Tomas cried out and dropped his rifle. Sand lifted from the ground around them, trembling in midair. Only the stranger remained steady. They raised the blue lantern. The flame inside burst brighter. Instantly, the red glow dimmed. The creature recoiled slightly. For the first time, Ryan saw uncertainty in it. Back! The stranger ordered. The thing tilted its head. The vertical seam across its face slowly opened. Inside was not flesh, only red light. The storm exploded outward. Wind hit like a wall. Tomas was thrown sideways again. Ryan nearly lost Mira as debris blasted across the flats. The stranger drove the lantern staff first into the sand. Blue fire spread in a circle around them. Everything beyond the circle vanished into screaming red dust. The sound outside became unbearable, thousands of voices layered together beneath the storm. Ryan dropped to one knee. Mira clutched her head, shaking violently. Make it stop. The stranger knelt beside her quickly. You can hear both frequencies. Ryan snapped upward. What does that mean? The stranger looked at him carefully, as if deciding how much truth he could survive. It wants her because she can open the threshold. I don't know what that means. No one alive does completely. Another impact shook the earth. The creature was approaching now. Even through the storm, its outline grew larger. The stranger spoke faster. 13 years ago, the miners broke into a chamber beneath the quarry. Your father was among the first inside. Ryan's chest tightened. There was an object there, the stranger continued, older than humanity, buried before your species learned language. Your father activated it accidentally. The collapse was containment. Ryan stared. You buried it? We buried the chamber. We. For the first time, emotion slipped through the stranger's controlled voice. People like me. Tomas finally forced himself upright. Enough riddles. What are you? The stranger removed one glove slowly. Their skin underneath was marked with thin, glowing blue lines running beneath the flesh like veins of light. Custodians, they said. Or what remains of them. The creature reached the outer edge of the blue fire. The temperature dropped instantly. Frost formed across the sand. Ryan heard whispers then. Not from the storm, but from the memories inside his own head. His father laughing. Mira as a toddler. His wife singing while washing dishes. Every lost thing returned at once. The creature knew. It used grief like a knife. You can still have them, the voices whispered. Ryan nearly stepped forward before Mira grabbed his hand hard. It's lying. The creature stopped moving. The seam in its face widened slightly. More red light spilled out. The stranger rose immediately. It sees her clearly now. Ryan's panic sharpened into anger. Then tell me how to stop it. You don't stop it. You close the threshold before it fully crosses. And how exactly do we do that? The stranger looked toward the quarry. With the key your father hid. Ryan froze. My father hid something? Yes. Where? The stranger met his eyes directly. In your house. A deafening crack split the air. The blue barrier shattered. The creature stepped through. Up close. Its size became horrifying. Nearly 15 feet tall. Every movement accompanied by the sound of grinding stone deep underwater. Tomas finally found his courage again and snatched up the rifle. He fired 3 shots directly into the creature's chest. The bullets vanished. Not bounced. Vanished into the red glow beneath its skin. The creature turned slowly toward Tomas. For the first time, it moved fast. One moment it stood 20 yards away. The next, it had Tomas by the throat. Ryan barely saw it happen. Tomas screamed as the creature lifted him off the ground effortlessly. Red light spread beneath Tomas's skin like burning veins. The marshal clawed helplessly at the thing's arm. The stranger ripped the blue lantern free and slammed it against the creature's chest. A blast of blue fire erupted between them. The creature released Tomas instantly, recoiling with a shriek that sounded like metal tearing apart. Run! The stranger shouted. Ryan grabbed Tomas under one arm while carrying Mira with the other. They fled into the storm as the quarry behind them erupted in red light again. And above Orizon, hidden behind boiling clouds, something colossal shifted in the sky for the very first time. The storm followed them like it was alive. Ryan could feel it hunting. Every alley in Orizon screamed with flying sand and broken metal as he dragged Tomas through the streets toward home. Mira ran beside him now, pale and shaking, one hand pressed against her ear. Behind them, red light pulsed over the rooftops in slow waves. Each pulse came with whispers, not sounds, thoughts. Open the door. Bring the child. End the waiting. Tomas nearly collapsed at the corner of Mercer Street. The skin around his throat had darkened where the creature touched him, thin red veins spreading downward beneath the flesh. Ryan lowered him beside an abandoned water cart. Can you walk? Tomas nodded once. A lie. The stranger in the silver mask appeared through the storm seconds later, moving with impossible speed despite the heavy black armor. The mark is spreading, they said, kneeling beside Tomas. What did that thing do to him? It connected. That doesn't answer anything. The stranger ignored the anger. They placed glowing fingers lightly against Tomas's neck. Blue light spread briefly beneath the marshal's skin. Tomas gasped violently. The red veins retreated slightly. For now, the stranger said quietly. For now, Tomas rasped. The herald's touch changes living tissue. Eventually it stops recognizing you as human. Silence. Wind howled through the empty street. Ryan stared toward the distant quarry. Herald, the thing you saw is not the source, the stranger said. It is only what comes first. Ryan felt cold settle deep into his bones. Only what comes first. Mira suddenly stopped walking. Her eyes fixed upward. Papa! Ryan followed her gaze. Shapes moved inside the clouds. Massive. Slow. Like mountains drifting beneath the storm. The stranger saw them too and immediately turned away. We're out of time. Take me to your house. They moved again. Orizon no longer looked like a town. It looked abandoned by the world itself. Doors hung open. Lanterns swung in empty windows. The possessed townspeople had vanished completely toward the quarry, leaving silence behind except for distant bells still ringing without rhythm. As they reached Ryan's yard, Mira froze again. There's someone inside. Ryan drew the rusted revolver he kept hidden beneath the truck seat. 5 bullets, probably older than Mira. The front door stood open. He never left it open. Tomas raised the rifle weakly while the stranger extinguished the blue lantern flame with one gloved hand. Darkness swallowed the house. Then came the sound. Breathing. Slow. Wet. From the kitchen. Ryan pushed Mira behind him and stepped inside carefully. The house smelled wrong. Not dust. Not storm air. Earth. Fresh turned earth. Moonlight filtered through broken boards across the floor and revealed muddy footprints leading toward the kitchen table. A figure sat there. Large shoulders. Mining coat. Head bowed. Ryan stopped dead. No! The figure slowly lifted its head. Elias Vale. Or something wearing him. The face was exactly the same as Ryan remembered from 13 years ago. Thick beard, tired eyes, scar over the brow from an old quarry accident. But the eyes glowed red. Mama! Mira whispered weakly, confused. Ryan's hands trembled around the revolver. You're dead. The thing smiled sadly. That's what they told you. Tomas whispered. Ryan, don't. But Ryan couldn't move. His father stood slowly from the table. Every instinct screamed that something was horribly wrong. Yet memory attacked harder than fear. This was the man who taught him to fix engines. The man who carried him home after he broke his leg falling from the canyon ridge. The man he buried without a body. You left me there, Elias said softly. Ryan flinched. You sealed the quarry. I was 14. You never came looking. That place killed 40 people. No, the red glow in Elias's eyes brightened. It woke us. The stranger stepped forward instantly. That is not your father. Elias's head turned unnaturally far toward the masked figure. Custodian, he hissed. The word sounded ancient, hateful. The room temperature dropped sharply. Frost spread across the windows. The stranger pulled the lantern free again. But before they could ignite it, Elias moved. Too fast. He crossed the kitchen in a blur and slammed the stranger through the wall into the next room. Wood exploded outward. Mira screamed. Tomas fired immediately. The rifle blast hit Elias square in the chest. He staggered once, looked down at the wound almost curiously, then kept walking. Ryan grabbed Mira and backed toward the stairs. Go upstairs. Tomas yelled. No! Go! Elias seized Tomas by the face before the marshal could reload. Red light flooded from Elias's hand into Tomas's skull. The marshal convulsed violently. The stranger burst back through the shattered wall and ignited the lantern. Blue fire roared across the room. Elias recoiled instantly, flesh smoking where the flame touched him. Ryan! The stranger shouted. The hidden compartment. What compartment? Your father built it beneath the workshop floor. Elias screamed, not in pain, in rage. The sound shattered every remaining window in the house. Outside, the storm answered. The shapes moving within the clouds grew larger. Ryan ran. He dragged Mira through the rear hallway into the workshop attached behind the house. Tools hung rusted on the walls exactly where his father left them years ago. The floor. He dropped to his knees, searching desperately. Papa! Mira pointed toward the old workbench. A symbol glowed faintly beneath the dust. 3 circles intersecting around a vertical line. Ryan pressed it instinctively. The floor clicked. A hidden panel slid open beneath the bench. Inside lay a metal case no larger than a toolbox. Cold blue light leaked through its seams. Behind them, the house shook violently. Tomas screamed somewhere inside, then stopped abruptly. Mira began crying silently. Ryan grabbed the case. The moment his fingers touched it, images slammed into his mind. The quarry chamber. His father kneeling before a massive black doorway buried beneath the earth. Red light pouring through cracks in reality itself. And voices whispering one phrase over and over. The gate must never fully open. Ryan nearly dropped the case. The stranger appeared in the workshop doorway, breathing hard. Their armor was cracked across one shoulder. We have to move now. Where's Tomas? The silence answered first. Then footsteps came slowly from inside the house. Heavy, deliberate. Ryan turned. Tomas stood in the hallway, but his eyes were glowing red now too. And behind him, smiling with his father's face, Elias whispered, "You were always going to bring us the key." Tomas raised the rifle slowly, not like a man aiming, like a puppet remembering how. His movements jerked in tiny unnatural motions while red veins crawled higher across his neck and jaw. One eye twitched violently, the other glowed steady crimson. "Mira," he said softly, though the voice beneath his own was much deeper, layered with echoes. "Come here." Ryan shoved her behind him. The workshop lights burst one by one. Glass exploded outward into the storm. The stranger stepped forward, blue lantern burning brighter than before. "He's losing himself. You said your fire could stop it." "For a time. Not after direct resonance." Tomas smiled crookedly. "Resonance," he repeated. "That's the word you people always use when you're afraid to say infection." Then he fired. The rifle shot struck the stranger directly in the chest, throwing them backward through the doorway. Ryan grabbed a hammer from the workbench and swung as Tomas lunged. The hammer cracked against Tomas's temple. Nothing. Tomas slammed Ryan into the wall hard enough to split wood behind him. The marshal's face twitched inches away, red light leaking from his eyes like smoke. "You should have listened," Tomas whispered. When the bells rang, Ryan drove the toolbox-shaped metal case into Tomas's face with both hands. Blue light burst from the seams. Tomas screamed. Not screamed. Two voices screamed from the same throat simultaneously. The red veins recoiled instantly. Ryan shoved him backward and kicked the workshop door shut. "Move!" the stranger shouted from outside. The storm had worsened beyond anything natural now. The sky above Orizon rotated slowly like a giant whirlpool of cloud and red lightning. Buildings groaned under the wind. And within the clouds, those enormous shapes were descending lower. Ryan didn't look too long. His brain resisted understanding their size. They sprinted toward the truck. Behind them, Tomas smashed through the workshop door with inhuman force. Half his face had darkened completely black now, splitting open around the eye socket where red light pulsed underneath. "Mira belongs to the choir," he roared. The stranger hurled the blue lantern flame directly at him. Fire exploded across Tomas's chest. He crashed into the mud screaming while the flames burned impossibly cold blue. Ryan reached the truck first and yanked the passenger door open. Inside, Mira climbed in, clutching the metal case tightly against her chest. The moment she touched it, the blue seams brightened. The stranger froze. "She activated it." "I didn't do anything," Mira cried. "You don't understand," the stranger whispered. The storm suddenly stopped again. Every sound vanished. Even the fire burning across Tomas's body became silent. Ryan slowly looked upward. The clouds were opening. Not separating. Opening. Something vast stared downward through the gap. He could not see its full shape. His mind slid away from it instinctively, refusing details. He only understood scale. It was larger than the town. Possibly larger than the valley itself. And somewhere inside the opening sky, countless red lights blinked awake like eyes. Mira whimpered. "It found me." The stranger grabbed Ryan violently by the coat. "You must go beneath the quarry." Ryan stared at them like they were insane. "That thing is there. That thing is everywhere now. The chamber below the quarry is the only place the gate can still be sealed." "Gate to what?" The stranger hesitated, then finally removed the silver mask. Ryan nearly recoiled. Half their face was human. The other half wasn't. Blue crystalline veins spread beneath translucent skin on one side, glowing softly in the darkness. Their left eye remained human brown. The right shimmered silver blue like liquid metal. "We were the first civilization it found," they said quietly. Ryan could barely speak. "What are you?" "Survivors." Lightning flashed red overhead. The stranger continued quickly. "It moves through consciousness, through grief, through memory. Entire worlds disappear without a single city burning because people open the gates themselves. The voices. Yes. The dead people. Not the dead. Your memories of them. It learns what you love and wears the shape. Ryan thought of his father sitting at the kitchen table. His stomach turned. Why Mira? The stranger looked toward the child. Some minds can hear the frequencies naturally. Very rare. Usually children. Their expression darkened. The herald needs one strong enough to stabilize a permanent opening. Mira hugged the glowing case tighter. What's inside this thing? Your father stole a lock. Ryan blinked. A what? A device designed to close thresholds. The stranger's voice carried old exhaustion now, centuries deep. We lost our world because we waited too long. Your father realized what the quarry chamber really was before the collapse fully spread. He sealed the shaft and hid the lock before the choir reached him. The choir. The stranger glanced upward. The mine's already taken. Something massive moved behind the clouds again. Orizon's church tower suddenly lifted into the air. Not broken. Lifted. An invisible force pulled it upward, screaming through wood and stone before it vanished into the storm above. Ryan finally understood. They could not stay. He climbed behind the truck wheel and turned the ignition. Nothing. Dead. The dashboard lights flickered red. The radio crackled. Then his father's voice filled the cab softly. You cannot outrun the sky, son. Mira covered her ears. The stranger slammed a glowing hand against the dashboard. Blue sparks exploded through the wiring. The voice died instantly. Drive now. The engine roared alive. Ryan hit the accelerator hard. The truck fishtailed through mud as they tore down the road toward the quarry. Behind them, Tomas rose from the burning blue fire. His body twisted unnaturally as black fractures spread across his skin like broken stone. And from every house in Orizon, every dark window and empty doorway, the missing townspeople emerged together, walking after the truck, smiling. Above them all, the opening in the sky widened further. And deep beneath the quarry, something ancient began singing back to it. The road to the quarry no longer existed. The desert had split open in long, jagged scars glowing faint red beneath the storm, forcing Ryan to swerve constantly as the truck bounced across broken earth. Wind hammered the vehicle from every direction. Sand struck the windshield so hard it sounded like gunfire. Behind them, Orizon disappeared beneath moving darkness. Not clouds. People. Hundreds now. The missing townsfolk marched together through the storm toward the quarry in perfect silence. And above them, impossible shapes descended lower through the torn sky. Mira stared through the back window with wide hollow eyes. They're singing louder. Ryan gripped the steering wheel harder. Don't listen. I can't stop hearing them. The metal case in her lap pulsed blue with every word. The stranger sat beside her in the truck bed, one hand resting lightly against the glowing seams as if stabilizing something alive inside it. You must resist the rhythm, they said. Mira looked frightened. What if I can't? The stranger did not answer immediately. That silence terrified Ryan more than anything. Another tremor shook the valley. Ahead, the quarry beam returned. Red and blue now intertwined like veins of lightning rising from beneath the earth into the storm above. The closer they drove, the more reality itself seemed unstable. Shadows stretched in wrong directions. The air rippled like heat over fire. Then the truck radio turned on by itself. Static. A woman laughing softly. Ryan froze. No, not again. His wife's voice filled the cab. You always run when you're afraid. Mira looked up instantly. Mama! Ryan's chest collapsed inward. Lena. The voice was perfect. Every syllable. Every softness. The stranger struck the dashboard immediately, but the radio only grew clearer. You left me alone in that hospital room, Ryan. Pain hit harder than fear ever could. I came back, he whispered before he could stop himself. Too late. The storm outside howled louder. You couldn't save me, the voice said gently. But you can still save her. Just bring her to the light. Myra's eyes drifted toward the quarry. The red glow reflected across her face. The stranger grabbed her shoulders sharply. Mira! Look at me! The child blinked hard, snapping back. The radio instantly twisted into screaming static. Ryan nearly lost control of the truck. How does it know all this? He shouted. It lives through memory, the stranger answered. Every mind it touches becomes part of the choir. The truck suddenly lurched sideways. Something enormous struck it from beneath the sand. Metal screamed. The vehicle rolled once across the desert. Ryan barely remembered the impact. Glass shattered. Mud and blood mixed together. Then silence. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Ryan dragged himself upright first, ears ringing violently. The truck lay overturned near the quarry rim, wheels still spinning slowly. Mira! I'm here! Relief nearly made him collapse. The stranger crawled free next, though one arm hung badly twisted now. What hit us? Ryan asked. The answer came from below the sand. A hand burst upward beside the wreck. Black, veined red. Another herald. Then another. The desert itself opened around them as towering figures clawed free from beneath the earth, rising like buried giants awakened after centuries underground. 5. No 7. Each different. Some wore fragments of ancient armor fused into their flesh. Others looked almost skeletal beneath smooth black skin. One dragged chains that glowed molten red across the sand. All eyeless. All facing Mira. The storm above pulsed in response. The stranger's face tightened with genuine fear for the first time. They should not be here yet. The herald carrying chains took one heavy step forward. The earth cracked beneath its weight. Return the vessel. Mira screamed suddenly and clutched the metal case. Blue light exploded outward. Every herald stopped instantly. The lock had activated fully. Symbols ignited across its surface. Hundreds of tiny glowing patterns rotating beneath the metal like machinery older than language itself. The stranger stared at it in disbelief. She synchronized with it completely. Ryan grabbed Myra's hand. What does that mean? She can operate it. Operate what? The seal. The heralds began moving again. Faster now. The chained one raised an arm toward the sky. Above the valley, the opening in the clouds widened so far Ryan could finally see part of what waited beyond. A face. Not truly a face. Something continent-sized shifting slowly in red darkness, covered in countless moving lights like entire cities trapped beneath skin. And it was descending. Ryan's mind recoiled violently from the sight. Blood poured from his nose instantly. The stranger shouted, "Do not look directly at it." Too late. For one horrifying second, Ryan understood something impossible. The thing in the sky was not arriving. It had always been there, watching worlds, waiting for doors. Mira pulled him back before he collapsed completely. Papa! The heralds charged simultaneously. The stranger ignited blue fire across both hands and met them head-on. The first herald exploded backward as blue flame tore through its chest. Another slammed into the stranger from the side hard enough to send both crashing through stone. Ryan grabbed Mira and ran toward the quarry edge. There was nowhere else left to go. Behind them, the battle became chaos of red lightning and blue fire. The stranger moved impossibly fast now, no longer entirely human in motion. Blue crystalline fractures spread across their skin as they fought. But there were too many heralds. One seized the stranger's arm and ripped it free completely. They didn't even scream. They kept fighting. Ryan reached the quarry rim and finally saw the shaft fully open beneath the storm. Not a mine anymore. Cathedral. An enormous spiral chamber descended impossibly deep into the earth, lined with black stone carved in symbols that glowed red like living wounds. And at the very bottom, a door. Massive. Circular. Breathing. The same red seam running across every herald pulsed across its center. The gate. Mira stepped toward it unconsciously. The lock in her hands brightened in response. Then the voice from the sky spoke again. Not inside their heads this time. Everywhere. Bring her below. The heralds stopped fighting instantly. All of them turned toward the quarry. Even the wounded stranger froze, because something else was climbing out of the gate now. Something far larger than the heralds. And as it rose slowly from the abyss beneath the earth, the stranger whispered in horror, "The Choir King." The Choir King rose slowly enough to destroy hope before it fully appeared. At first, Ryan saw only movement in the abyss beneath the quarry, vast shadows shifting behind the red glow of the gate. Then something enormous unfolded upward through the shaft, scraping ancient stone with sounds like collapsing mountains. The heralds knelt instantly, every single one. Even the chained giant lowered itself before the rising thing. The storm above mirrored the motion. Clouds spiraled downward toward the quarry as if the sky itself bowed in worship. Ryan backed away from the rim instinctively, dragging Mira with him. But she was staring downward, not frightened now, listening. "Mira!" He shook her hard. "Stay with me." She blinked slowly. "It's talking about stars." The stranger stumbled toward them through blood and blue fire. One arm gone, cracks of glowing crystal spreading across half their body. "We seal the gate now," they said urgently. "How?" "The lock must reach the chamber beneath the door." Ryan looked over the edge again. "You want us to go down there?" "There is no other choice." A thunderous sound rolled upward from the shaft. The Choir King had reached the upper levels. Its shape twisted against comprehension. Every time Ryan tried focusing directly on it, his vision distorted violently. He could only understand fragments, towering black limbs, layers of shifting faces trapped beneath translucent skin, massive antler-like structures made of red crystal, and eyes, thousands of them opening and closing across its body like blinking wounds. The creature stopped halfway up the quarry, waiting. The voice that followed was strangely calm. "You carry the last lock." The ground shook with every word. "Return it." Mira suddenly stepped forward. Ryan caught her instantly. "She hears it stronger now," the stranger warned. The lock pulsed violently blue against Myra's chest. Red light answered from below. The two frequencies collided in the air, making the storm itself scream. Ryan turned toward the stranger desperately. "Tell me the truth. If we close this thing, what happens to her?" The stranger's silence lasted too long. "No." Ryan's voice cracked instantly. "No. She is synchronized with the lock," the stranger said quietly. "The connection may not survive separation." Mira looked between them both. "Papa." Ryan felt the world tilt beneath him. After Lena died, Mira had become the only reason he kept waking up each morning. The only thing stronger than grief was responsibility. And now the universe wanted her too. The Choir King moved again. Heralds began climbing down into the quarry toward the gate as though preparing something. The stranger stiffened suddenly. "They're accelerating the opening." "What does that mean?" "It means the king cannot remain stable in our reality much longer." Fear entered their voice fully now. Something bigger is coming behind it. Above the valley, the opening sky widened another fraction. Ryan looked away immediately before madness could settle deeper into his thoughts. Tomas appeared at the quarry edge then, or what remained of him. His body had elongated unnaturally, bones protruding beneath blackened skin. Red fractures pulsed across his face where his human features were disappearing. Yet somehow his eyes still held pieces of himself. "Ryan!" he rasped painfully. Ryan stepped forward cautiously. "Tomas!" The marshal trembled violently, like two forces tearing him apart from inside. "You need to go." A herald emerged behind him instantly. Black claws pierced straight through Tomas's chest. Ryan shouted. Tomas looked down once at the arm protruding through him. Then, with the last strength left in whatever remained human inside him, he grabbed the herald's wrist and screamed. "Now!" The stranger reacted immediately. Blue fire exploded outward from their body in a massive wave that hurled nearby heralds into the quarry walls. "Down the shaft!" they yelled. Ryan grabbed Mira and ran. Stone stairs spiraled downward inside the quarry wall, ancient and impossibly smooth beneath centuries of dust. The deeper they descended, the quieter the storm became until only the pulse of the gate remained. Heartbeat, heartbeat, heartbeat. The chamber below was colossal. Nothing human had built it, Black pillars surrounded the circular gate embedded into the far wall. Red veins pulsed across its surface in slow breathing patterns. And before it stood hundreds of kneeling figures. Not townspeople, not heralds, skeletons, thousands of years old, still bowing. Mira whispered, horrified. They stayed here forever. The lock suddenly floated from her hands. Blue symbols ignited across the chamber walls instantly. The gate reacted violently. The red seam across its center widened slightly. Something enormous moved behind it. The strangers stumbled down the final stairs behind them, collapsing to one knee. Hurry, they gasped. Place the lock into the core altar. Ryan finally saw it, a circular pedestal directly before the gate itself. But between them and the altar stood the choir king. Waiting silently now. Up close, it dwarfed the chamber. Faces shifted endlessly beneath its dark surface. Alien, human, things Ryan couldn't identify. Entire civilizations trapped inside one living nightmare. Yet when it spoke, the voice sounded almost gentle. You fear losing her. Ryan held Mira tighter. The king tilted countless eyes toward him. We can return everything. Images flooded the chamber instantly. Lena alive again. Mira older and smiling. Orizon restored. His father standing beside him beneath clear skies. Every wound undone. Every regret erased. Ryan's knees weakened. The king saw it immediately. You are so tired of pain. Mira squeezed his hand hard. Papa, it's showing what you want, not what's real. The king's attention shifted toward her. And for the first time, anger entered its voice. The child understands too quickly. Heralds began descending rapidly into the chamber above. The stranger forced themselves upright again despite the spreading crystal consuming half their body. Ryan, they said quietly. When the lock activates, fully run. Run where? There may not be a where. The gate began opening wider. Red light flooded the chamber. And from the widening seam beyond reality itself, something unimaginably enormous finally looked back through the door. The thing behind the gate was too large for reality. Ryan understood that instantly. Not through logic. Through instinct. Every survival impulse buried in human evolution screamed that the mind was never meant to witness something so enormous. The chamber lights bent toward the opening as if gravity itself had changed direction. The seam in the gate widened another inch. And the world began dying. Stone cracked across the chamber ceiling. The quarry above thundered apart. Ryan heard buildings collapsing in distant Orizon while the storm overhead spiraled downward into the widening breach. The choir king opened all its eyes at once. The sight nearly drove him to his knees. Return the lock. The command struck like a physical blow. Mira cried out, clutching her ears as blood ran down her neck. The floating lock trembled violently between blue and red light. The stranger staggered toward the altar. Crystal growth now covered nearly their entire body. It's forcing synchronization, they gasped. Ryan grabbed Mira tighter. Tell me how to stop it. The stranger looked at him with what little humanity remained in their face. You already know. Ryan's chest hollowed instantly. No, the lock needed Mira because she was connected to it. To seal the gate fully, the connection had to complete. Which meant, no. The stranger's voice broke for the first time. I'm sorry. The heralds flooded into the chamber. Dozens now. They poured down the stone stairs surrounding the gate, black bodies moving in perfect silence, while the choir king remained still at the center like a dark god awaiting tribute. Ryan backed away slowly. Mira looked up at him. And somehow, despite everything, she smiled a little. The same smile Lena used to make when pretending things were okay during the hospital days. Papa, she whispered softly. I'm not scared anymore. He nearly shattered right there. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. You're a child. So were you when Grandpa died. The words hit like a knife. Mira stepped closer, tears mixing with blood on her face. You stayed alive after losing people, she said quietly. You taught me that. Ryan couldn't breathe. The choir king moved slightly. The gate behind it widened further. Something colossal pressed closer from the other side. Reality around the opening cracked like thin ice under pressure. The stranger suddenly ignited with brilliant blue light. Every crystal vein across their body erupted at once. "I can hold them briefly," they said. "No! Run!" They hurled themselves into the heralds. Blue fire detonated across the chamber. The explosion tore entire sections of stone apart. Heralds disintegrated instantly beneath the blast while others screamed in impossible frequencies that shattered pillars around them. The choir king finally roared. Not loud. Infinite. Ryan grabbed Mira and sprinted toward the altar through collapsing debris. The lock floated faster now, pulled toward the gate like metal toward a magnet. Mira reached for it instinctively. The moment her fingers touched its surface fully, the chamber transformed. Blue symbols exploded across every wall. The gate convulsed violently. The massive presence beyond reality recoiled for the first time. The choir king lunged. Too fast. Ryan shoved Mira toward the altar just as the creature struck him across the chamber. Pain erased everything. He slammed into black stone hard enough to crack ribs instantly. The world blurred red. Somewhere distant, Mira screamed. Ryan forced himself upright through agony. The choir king towered over the altar now. Mira stood before it holding the fully awakened lock against her chest while blue light engulfed her completely. The king's countless eyes focused only on her. "You belong to the choir." Mira shook violently but stood her ground. "No, you cannot carry the silence alone." "I won't be alone." The king hesitated. Then Mira looked toward Ryan one last time, and smiled again. "I'll still hear you, Papa." She pressed the lock into the altar. The world exploded blue. A shockwave ripped through the chamber with catastrophic force. Heralds vanished instantly into ash. The gate screamed. A sound like reality tearing apart at the atomic level. The massive thing beyond the opening pulled backward violently. The choir king reached desperately for Mira. Too late. Blue fractures spread across its body. The creature began collapsing inward. Thousands of trapped faces screaming as cracks of light consumed them one by one. Ryan crawled desperately toward Mira through falling debris. Mira! She stood at the center of the storm of light now, suspended slightly above the altar. The lock had fused into her chest. Blue symbols moved beneath her skin. And behind her the gate was closing. Slowly, painfully. The enormous presence beyond reality fought against it with impossible force. The widening cracks across the chamber proved it. The world itself strained to hold. Mira looked frightened again finally. "Papa! It hurts." Ryan reached her just as the final herald disintegrated behind them. He grabbed her hand. "I'm here." The blue light intensified. The chamber ceiling collapsed in sections. The stranger, what remained of them, dragged themselves across the floor nearby, half crystal now, barely alive. "The gate is sealing," they whispered weakly. "But the connection." Ryan understood. Mira was becoming part of the seal. "No," he whispered. Mira squeezed his hand weakly. "It's okay." "It's not okay." The gate behind her narrowed further. The thing beyond reality screamed one final time. A sound so enormous the entire valley above shook apart. Then, silence. The gate slammed shut. Blue light consumed everything. For a long moment, there was nothing in the universe except brightness. Then darkness returned slowly. Quiet. Real quiet. No whispers. No storm. No breathing sky. Ryan opened his eyes beneath falling dust. The chamber was ruined. The gate remained sealed, now covered entirely in glowing blue fractures. The choir king was gone. The heralds were gone. The storm above was gone. And Mira, Ryan's breath caught. She still stood beside the altar. Alive. Weak, trembling, but alive. The blue symbols beneath her skin glowed faintly before slowly dimming. Ryan reached her in seconds and pulled her into his arms so tightly she laughed painfully. "You're crushing me." He broke then. Completely. Years of grief, fear, loneliness. All of it finally collapsing out of him while he held his daughter beneath the silent earth. The stranger watched them quietly from the ruins. "The lock chose differently this time," they whispered. Ryan looked up. "What happens now?" The stranger turned toward the sealed gate. For a while, your world gets to live. Far above them, dawn finally touched the desert. And for the first time in 13 years, the quarry stopped breathing.